discussion is going to be on cancer awareness and PPE for the long-term health. Today, you're going to be hearing from myself. I'm a regional sales manager for Fire-Dex, and at the end of the webinar, we're going to talk about our solutions that we have for health and awareness. You're also going to hear from Cindy Ell from the Firefighter Cancer Foundation. Again, she's talking about cancer awareness and resource assistance and the research that is going on. And then you'll also hear from Bob Keys from FDNY and the evolution of PPE and how it applies today. Fire-Dex, just a brief overview. We're a turnout gear manufacturer located in Medina, Ohio. We've been in business since 1983. We are one of the leading manufacturers and marketers of protective apparel. We make everything from head to toe that requires an NFPA certification. And we also recently acquired the TechGen company, which is a product that we're using to help reduce the exposures to some of the bad things that are out there in the fire service today. And we're going to start with Cindy Ell from the Firefighter Cancer Foundation. She is going to kick off the seminar, and I will hand the ball off to Cindy.
Okay, thank you, Bruce, and our thanks to the National Volunteer Fire Council and, again, all the folks taking time out of their busy day to become better informed and be part of this important work that we're all taking part of for our health and safety in the industry. My name is Cindy Ell, President and founder of the Firefighter Cancer Foundation. The FFCF was founded in 2004, originally as families of firefighters with cancer. The original vision was to offer resource assistance and a voice to 2,000 Maryland firefighters and families exposed to toxic PCBs from training in waste oil at the Anne Arundel County Fire Academy. The original case numbers were approximately 250 adults affecting 10 fire departments in Maryland. Training academy instructors were heavily impacted, and by taking their gear and their clothing home, so were their wives and children. So we have cancer, and one of the challenges in our industry is that we have a variety of primary cell diagnoses, both by organ and body system, that are going on, but we're also hearing more reports of second cell types of cancer that are being diagnosed, either at the same time or even following the original diagnoses. So we actually have some of these cancers that are morphing into others, some that are being recognized and some that are not. The rates are varying across the country and differ greatly by region and at times by fire department. If you're diagnosed with a particular type of cancer, it's very important that you find out what cell type you're diagnosed with and specifically the location or the region where it has started, if at all possible. So these are 8 of the trending cancers right now that we're seeing in the service. The FFCF work in this area continues to focus on the connection between the cancer, the carcinogen, and the organ or the system that's being affected. When reporting cancer numbers or trending, either as a department or as a region or as a state association, it's very important to utilize medically and scientifically quantified data from credible sources. It's also very important to protect and secure any of your information that's gathered about your workforce. We encourage departments and state organizations to engage with their national leaders because there's a rapid change in the amount of information that's being disseminated as to the trending of these numbers and these cancers, and we want to make sure that everybody in our industry is on the same page and also speaking the same language and communicating the same message across the board. So going a little further into the increased cancer risk that we're seeing. This trending shows that firefighters are at higher risk than general population. You've been hearing a lot more about this, especially since 2006, the Great Flamaster study. It's very important to note that these differences aid basically in determining lifestyle, environmental, or occupational exposures that either contribute or cause these trends. There's some great work that's going on in San Francisco right now on breast cancer, and it's one of the newest hubs to research some of the female cancer issues going on. and hopefully there'll be further information coming out June or July from San Francisco. Oops, excuse me. We'll go back one. There we go. So the molecular toxins, this is really our list of the worst of some of what we're exposed to. The interesting part is that individually these chemicals are all not good for you. And then when you combine them, they become combinations that many times either are not recognized or go to levels that from a scientific standpoint are considered ultra hazardous. One of the things that we find interesting when they're mixed and superheated on a fire, they definitely can become cancer feeders and drivers. The big question is we don't know when or what that trigger actually is to kick the cancer off yet in our bodies. So how are we exposed? You'll see here a list of various types of fires and situations that we run calls on. So first responders are exposed via inhalation in a number of ways. This drives home the importance of wearing your air and your respiratory protection, not only while the fire is burning, but also after it is extinguished, and the particulate and toxins continue to be exposures. So to reemphasize, we want to make sure the responders remain on air, and PPE cleaning after any exposure to these carcinogens is very important. One other point, if you have a training facility in your region, does your facility actually have a PPE policy for respiratory protection? And that's not just on your days that you're actually training, but on your off days as well, because we're finding these buildings are continuing to off-gas after the fire is out, just as they would on a traditional fire scene. So the respiratory inhalation of the soot, particulate, and gases obviously is a major problem, but so is ingestion. So we're actually swallowing the particulate. When it mixes with saliva, it's entering the digestive tract, and we're seeing an increase in our esophageal and our stomach cancers. And then lastly, the skin is the largest organ of your body. So dermal exposure, is actually one of your highest rates of exposure. And vehicles of exposure, keeping in mind that for every 5 degrees of body temperature increase, your rate of absorption actually increases approximately 400 times. Now, this doesn't take into account humidity, level of altitude, and any other factors that may be contributing to enhanced absorption of the toxins through the skin. The original work that the FDNY did with the University of Cincinnati included contaminated gear and identified high levels of plasticizers and PAHs in gloves, hoods, and helmet liners. If you think about your helmet liner, this was traditionally a career profile of your exposures because they were never cleaned or changed. We're happy to see that this is a process that's improving in the industry. Now we're seeing departments and helmets being used that can have helmet exchange, and they're actually addressing the cleaning of the helmet liners as well. So you don't want to forget about what is actually on top of your head in addition to the other parts of your body that are being exposed. We also learned that prostate cancer feeds and thrives on plasticizers, which again further supports the importance of cleaning your PPE. So from the fire station to the fire ground, your exposure clock actually begins when you enter a fire station. Diesel exhaust, cleaners, solvents, mold, building materials, and VOCs that are all contained within your fire building or your response quarters all can have an impact upon your health. Then you respond to a fire. You're exposed to a variety of health hazard carcinogens, toxic cocktails in gas, particulate, and soot in a variety of forms. The worst of synthetics, plasticizers that are linked to prostate cancer, and phthalates that actually can disrupt your endocrine system. This includes your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, your thyroid gland, parathyroid, your adrenals, so also impacts the kidneys, your reproductive glands, your ovaries, your testes, and your pancreas. We're happy to see that we have positive change going on in the industry, but we need more people to embrace the fact that we have responsibility, not only as individuals, but as departments and also as leaders in this industry, to keep moving that change forward. A variety of help is available to affect that change, whether it's department policies and SOPs, or just instituting simpler policies that maybe aren't as formal as an SOP or SOG. The FFCF continues to recommend hot to cold zoning of both the fire station and now the fire ground to reduce your toxic exposures. We have a variety of models available to assist you with that if you're not familiar with that as of yet. Also, the use of diesel exhaust removal systems and keeping them serviced properly is very important. If you don't have diesel exhaust removal in your station, that's something that you definitely need to move toward the priority list. Diesel exhaust is a known carcinogen, and it is linked to some specific cancers now. Your preparation for response includes being hydrated and maintaining a healthy lifestyle both on and off duty. And your fire operations on a fire ground or on a call should now include street decontamination. But we want you to know what you're actually putting on your skin and on your body. So we encourage you to read the label on your wipes, on the towels, on the products that you're using. We want to make sure that the decontamination practice that you're doing is reducing the exposure and actually not changing the exposure and making it worse. So FFCF programming includes a variety of work, both nationally in the U.S. and internationally. We were recognized in 2014 as international entity in Australia, and work in Canada, Brazil, and a number of European countries continue. Individuals throughout Europe with chapters in Colorado and Virginia are working heavily right now. The New York chapter, we're proud to say, has been taking the forefront with the New York political delegation on the National Cancer Registry for Firefighters, and also working on a healthcare alliance for research, specifically out of Western New York. The FFCF has added research teams and internal experts in wellness, fitness, nutrition, PPE, hazardous materials, air monitoring, international medicine, and also canine disease detection. The organization began as a fire service and family resource organization first. And so in keeping true to the why of why the group started, there are a variety of resources that are available to navigate the cancer experience. This is done on a one-on-one personalized basis, and we use a team concept for working with folks. Toll-free number is available to access trained advocates, and that begins a process of personalized resource assistance for the entire family. It does not matter who in the family is diagnosed with cancer. This covers everything from diagnosis through treatment to end-of-life guidance if needed. The resource programs feature tangible needs of getting through the cancer, and we plug in all organizations, fire service, local, and federal, that can help. Education is something that we feel is very important, and this goes from the recruit level or the entry first responder to the chief level, but we also get involved with municipalities and also legislative education as well. So we have an array of topics and areas of interest that are available, and that includes exposures, investigative, and also medical. And our wellness. So our wellness team is actually comprised of physiologists, cardiac rehab specialists, and also mental health professionals. We're exploring the links between cancer and post-traumatic stress, and we're specifically seeing changes in our population, both at diagnosis of cancer and also post-traumatic stress symptoms being magnified at stage 4. We need to do some research in these areas and look further as to how we can better help our folks, both pre-diagnosis, during diagnosis, post, and then also for the family, so we can anticipate what those needs will be. We're working with a variety of collegiate and medical institutions to support the work and research, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your day today to join us for the things that we're talking about. I know I've already covered a lot of topics very quickly, so you can visit our website, which is ffcancer.org, or our toll-free number is 866-411-3323, or FFCF, if you still spell those letters out on the telephone. But again, just want to let you know that our organization is here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have folks all over the U.S. Dedicated to help you through the cancer experience, and we'd would like to prevent that and be more proactive instead of reactive in the work that we do. So I thank you all for my portion. I'm going to toss this over now to Bob Keys.
Thank you very much, Cindy. I appreciate it. Great presentation. See if I can jump over. Well, good day, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to the National Volunteer Fire Council to allow me to speak about a topic that I'm extremely passionate about. Protecting firefighters, protecting those that serve has been an obligation and a calling for me my whole adult life. I started as a volunteer firefighter in high school. Just completed a 31-year career with the New York City Fire Department, traveling through most of the city in the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. But probably the most rewarding job I had working at FDNY was the end of my career when I was asked to take over as Chief of Research and Development. In that job, I was able to learn so much about how we evolve safety gear and how changes take effect to make firefighting even a little bit safer. Quite a process, but quite an education. And I salute all of you that are listening in here today for taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about how to better protect firefighters. It's noble, it's honorable work to do, and I'm glad to join you today doing this. I was very proud to work in FDNY for many reasons, but one of them I want to talk about today was the characteristic that FDNY always identified their weakness and worked to get better. And that often happened after fatal fires left the department looking to make changes so that that fatality would never happen again. And so, yes, as you've heard before, we like to be proactive, but more often than not, when it comes to changes and evolution in personal protective equipment, we are definitely more reactive than proactive. But constantly looking at weaknesses is how we'll get better. So I started in the early 80s, actually late 70s as a volunteer, when we were wearing bunker gear that didn't offer us very much protection. We had numerous burns. It was commonplace and actually accepted that, yes, firefighters will get second-degree burns routinely in the course of action doing their daily work. Studies helped evolve that gear to become better. But often it was studies that were following fatal fires that caused us to make those changes. Our leather helmets back in the day didn't have chin straps. Well, lost helmets in chaotic fire events have been the cause for separating crews and having fatalities occur due to the chaos that ensues after a crew is broken up. Our neck and ears were unprotected, and as I said, second-degree burns from falling embers were commonplace from anybody who worked in a busy fire station. Our coats were three-quarter length, trying to cover up our legs, and the material at the time, neoprene and Nomex, really did not hold up very well. So through the evolution and through fatal fire reviews where firefighters suffered life-threatening burns, the materials that are out today for bunker gear are far superior. The canvas work gloves, I'm sure many of you listening in remember those orange fireball gloves that were terrible, had no thermal protection whatsoever, but at least they were waterproof. We've seen tremendous evolution in protective gloves. And of course, the rubber boots have been replaced due to numerous burn injuries there as well. So what we see today is a firefighter who's wearing much better bunker gear, a shorter coat giving better dexterity and movability. The collars are made in such a way that they can stay up to protect the neck better with a throat guard in place. Bunker pants certainly protect the upper thighs much better than the three-quarter rubber boots. And the knee pads, of course, cut down on those burn injuries, and leather boots as well, giving better protection. And now we have helmets with not just chin straps, but ear flap protection as well. So I want to go through one just simple scenario of a catastrophe that created a change in personal protective equipment in FDNY. After a blizzard had dropped 2 feet of snow in the Bronx in 2005, 6 firefighters were trapped on the top floor of this 5-story building when an illegal alteration blocked them from access to the fire escape, and a flashover swept from the floor below, trapping them up on the top floor. Well, 6 firefighters were forced to jump out that 5th-story window. 4 of them survived, and 2 of those that survived had used a rope. So being introspective, the FDNY did a review to make sure that this catastrophe would not repeat itself and came up with a personal safety system, a 50-foot length of rope with a hook that can be used to have firefighters bail out of an untenuous situation if they're ever trapped in that same similar predicament. Again, it's a reaction to an identified weakness that the FDNY found and has been adopted by many, many fire departments, particularly in the Northeast, where there are much taller buildings and a lot more of a vertical city. It's attached to a Class 2 FR nylon harness we wear on the outside of our bunker pants. There are internal and external systems available today. And it's attached in a pouch that's worn just underneath the coat. The FDNY went through extensive testing at our R&D facility and as well as at the ROC, the Training Academy, before coming up with this system. Again, I'm using this just as an example as how we have reacted after identifying a weakness. Now I want to carry that forward into the next identified weakness that's really plaguing the fire service tremendously right now, and ask for everyone to join in and help work together to find a way to change our protective equipment, change our procedures, and change our culture to nip this epidemic in the bud and stop it from continuing to grow. Way back in 2010, this cartoonist, Paul Coombs, who gave me permission to use his slide here, had sounded the alarm to the fire service, and it's taken such a long time to catch on to make firefighters more aware that it's not just the fire that will kill you. The smoke is just as dangerous as the fire, and then it's excellently portrayed here. Changing our culture is a challenge. So we're going to bring up a lot of different studies to try to back this up, to try to create this awareness and be able to be visual. I know firefighters love to see dramatic pictures and videos, and sometimes statistics like this can be very compelling. When you look at what's been killing firefighters since 1950, it was pretty much fireground situations, whether it was falls, burns, heat exhaustion, heart attack. Those were the typical fire deaths. But as you can see, this graph in red is the cancer part of the firefighter deaths. It has actually extended to be the #1 killer of firefighters. True firefighters don't die at the fire scene of cancer. It's years later, and it's very hard to pin it back to what fire they were contaminated at. But the statistics are pointing out that firefighters are dying at a tremendously greater rate than non-firefighters. In 2015, the Firefighter Cancer Support Network came out with a white paper that I'm going to refer to quite a few times here. And in that study that has been picked up by many states, professional firefighter associations, volunteer firefighter associations, unions, and even cities, they're sounding the alarm by putting together posters and posting them around firehouses everywhere, talking about the greater chance that firefighters have of all these different types of cancers. Not just creating an awareness, but sounding an alarm to change our culture, to change the way we do things, staying on air longer, deconning our gear, changing our tactics, and cutting down on the exposure that we provide, that we're constantly exposed to as firefighters. So this is the New Hampshire version of creating an awareness, joining together with lots of different organizations to sound the alarm. They have this from basically the same study, calling about those percentages that are greater instances for firefighters. But also, I'd like to point out on this slide that in this epidemic, the statistics that really shake me is that in Boston, every 2.5 weeks, a firefighter is diagnosed with cancer. That's the active duty firefighters. In Miami-Dade, 1 out of every 3 on-duty active firefighters has cancer or has had cancer. And that in Miami-Dade, the rate is even higher amongst retirees. It's 50%. 50% of all retirees from Miami-Dade County have cancer or have had cancer. So it's an epidemic that we need to have call alarms to change the way we're doing things. In San Antonio, again, this is theirs. They finally were able to convince their city managers to get a second set of bunker gear for everybody to install smoke evacuation devices in the apparatus floor, and that's ongoing today. South Carolina, another very good visual to post in a firehouse. If you fought this but didn't do this, you have a bigger fight ahead. So the alarm is further sounded by this test. In 2015, the IFCF financed a test in Research Triangle Institute in North Carolina where they put a firefighter fully encapsulated in his bunker gear, noticed that the ear flaps are down on his helmet, he has a hood on that's tucked inside his coat, his collar's up, the throat tab is closed, and he has a full SCBA on. He's put in this chamber that's really used as a chemical warfare weapons chemical weapons protective suit efficiency test. But they took these tiny, tiny particles of silica that had a fluorescent marker on them, 0.2 to 2 micron particles that are suspended in the air with a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and had a firefighter go through evolutions inside this chamber to see how could these tiny particles penetrate into his bunker gear. They carefully removed his gear after the 30 minutes of going through all these different exercises, and what they found under an ultraviolet light was that, yes, there was some penetration around his belly, a little bit on his hands, and up around his calves, possibly because he was wearing shorts and the particles got up inside his bunker pants. But the most glaring results came from throat, neck, and ear area. Remember, this firefighter had his ear flaps down, collar up, and was wearing a 2-layer hood, and yet still these particles accumulated on the skin of his throat and neck at a tremendously high rate. As you can see here, that one stripe where there is nothing was where the strap to his mask was pulling tight against his face. So another study that was done at the University of Kentucky comparing all the different types of skin on your body showed that the most porous skin is in your groin area, but the second, third, and fourth is right around that area where the particles got through the jaw, the ear canal, and the forehead. And if you look at the right of that graph there, you'll see that we're spending the least amount of money on our protective gear in the area that's getting exposed the worst and is extremely porous. So this Firefighter Cancer Support Network, I recommend everyone read their paper that has been out since 2003. It's available on the Internet, very relevant for what we're doing, calls to our alarm about changing our culture. Some really good statistics in there. And the one biggest one was one that Cindy had said earlier, that when your skin temperature goes up every 5 degrees, there's a 400% increase in the porosity of your skin. So we're talking about the second, third, and fourth most porous skin on your body, your throat, your ears, in that area. It becomes 4 times more porous when the temperature goes up only 5 degrees. So that alarm has been a call out to the industry. What can we do to better protect firefighters? I'm lucky enough to work not only for Fire-Dex but also for DuPont to be able to come up with new and innovative fabrics and protective gear that can block these tiny, tiny bad particles that Cindy was talking about before that exist in everyday smoke in these modern-day fires that we're fighting. And this Nomex NanoFlex technology is a breathable but particle-blocking fabric that when sewn between 2 layers of a hood, it allows firefighters to have good situational awareness, but also blocks out these tiny little particles that are killing firefighters. The statistics of it has very high THL because it is so breathable. It increases the TPP only about 5 to 10 points, depending on the other 2 layers, and is light as a feather and paper thin. So the Nomex NanoFlex was tested in that fast test, as I was talked about before, at Research Triangle Institute, because you could not get 2 firefighters to do the same thing for 30 seconds, no less 30 minutes. By putting stationary head forms in the chamber and testing them for 30 minutes, it was proven on the right side head forms 2 and 4 that had Nomex NanoFlex had 0 penetration of particles, where the head form similar next to it had tremendous penetration. So that brings us to the latest product coming out of Fire-Dex, the H41 Interceptor Hood that Bruce will talk a little bit more at the end of this presentation. It has that particle blocking Nomex NanoFlex technology in it. It's a game changer for firefighters, gaining popularity, and hopefully will be a way for the future in cutting down on our cancer situations that we have in the fire service. So that gives me the opportunity now to pass the speaking presentation over to Bruce Scheck, who will finish up. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a great day.
Okay, hopefully everybody can hear me because I had some connectivity issues. Bob, Cindy, are you able to hear me? Hello? Bob, Cindy?
I can hear you fine.
Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Just want to make sure. I had my computer shut down on me, and so here we go. So at Fire-Dex, we're always trying to work innovative ways to improve firefighter safety, and obviously health and safety is a big deal. There's 2 categories that we see that affect firefighter. Number one, we see cardiovascular stress is the biggest line of duty death today, and then of course the exposure with a higher rate than ever with the things that are being burnt up in a fire. So we developed the Interceptor package, which is we're hoping to change the way people think about turnout gear. Number one, it's important that you wear turnout gear that is going to provide good mobility for the firefighter to reduce his stress and allow him to function, and that's our FXR package. But the TechGen part of that is a secondary type of gear that can be used when structure gear doesn't need to be used. So many times structure gear is being worn where it doesn't need to be worn, and therefore you're increasing the cardiovascular stress on a firefighter, but also you're re-exposing that firefighter to things that may be on the outer shell of the turnout gear. So the TechGen PPE is a single layer garment that provides a firefighter an alternate garment to where it's less stressful on his body and he's not handling dirty turnout gear, potentially re-exposing himself. And then the H41 Interceptor hood, as Bob introduced that to us, it is a new idea on the market. A lot of our competitors are developing hoods too, but the advantage to the H41 hood with the Fire-Dex is that we're not using a moisture barrier inside, so our hood feels like a normal hood, and it is blocking the particulates that carry carcinogens to the face down to 0.2 microns. And so what we see after testing is that when a firefighter comes out of a burn chamber, comes out of a smoke training, they don't have a dirty face anymore. And so we're seeing that as a big impact. So again, we're trying to reduce the cardiovascular stress through better designed gear and the lesser use of heavy turnout gear. We're trying to reduce the exposure rate by not having you handle dirty turnout gear and really blocking what's hitting to the firefighter's face and hood. And again, if you have more questions regarding the products, you can visit us at firedex.com, or you can reach out to any of our salespeople and we can direct you with more information. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. I would like to open the floor for questions. Remember, your phones are muted, so if you would like to ask one, you can type it into the box, or you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Give it a minute here. I don't see anyone raising their hand. I'll give it a minute in case someone's typing. Okay, someone has questions. Kevin. Kevin, Kevin Body, would you like to ask them over the phone? Oh, wait, he's typing. I see. He wants to know who has tested the hoods and how are they certified for protection?
Well, I'll answer that question. They currently meet the current NFPA standard that is out there for hoods. The new standard, which will give an option for a particulate barrier hood, is going to be introduced yet this month. And we know from the test ramifications, how the testing has been laid out, our hood will pass that, and the fast test that Bob mentioned will be part of that test, as well as various other things that NFPA has required. We have multiple departments that have tested the hood and are finding results. In my territory alone, the Ohio Fire Academy continues to work and test the hood. The instructors are finding that their faces aren't dirty anymore when they come out of a training burn. They don't wash off as much as they used to wash off. They don't smell like smoke. Toledo Fire Department is also doing a wear trial, and about a month and a half ago, Lexington Fire Department started doing a wear trial. And everybody's finding it favorable. The hood is easy to wear. It's not thick and bulky like other hoods out there. So, again, when the new standard comes out, we're ready to send our hood off to testing and be certified to the new standard.
Great. Someone else asked if there are any recommendations specific to the volunteer fire service in regard to cancer prevention.
So some of the simple things, one, it starts honestly with personal responsibility. Are you keeping yourself in good health? And that's both in and outside of the fire station. In the fire station, there are some low-cost ways that you can look at reducing your exposures in the station. things like getting the gear off the floor. We know that diesel exhaust particulate travels across the floor and then typically goes up following the airspace. It'll stick to everything in its path. So if you can keep your gear up off the floor, if you can have it in a location that is away from the exhaust itself. There are a lot of times we go into fire stations and we see gear is hanging on a wall right across from the tailpipe. And even if diesel exhaust removal is being used, there is still some spillage that's coming out typically from the undercarriage and still some exposure factors going on. If there is an ice maker that is in the bays of the fire station, we highly encourage you to move it out of the same area of the station as the equipment. Again, you're literally drinking ice cubes that contain diesel exhaust particulate and benzenes. We've been able to show that through a pretty cool test. You can take your ice cubes, pop them in a microwave safe bowl for about 30 seconds. And then if you see a sheen that's floating on the surface of the water, that's what you're drinking and putting into your stomach. That causes cancer. We have a list and a variety of ways that both in the fire station and on the fire ground, you can reduce your exposure to toxins. Most importantly, get them off and out of your body as quickly as you can. We'll be happy to share that. Go ahead.
Cindy, can I answer that?
Can I?
Please
yeah,
do.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, so that Firefighter Cancer Support Network white paper that was out, that I mentioned in my presentation, lists many, many ways that the volunteer firefighters specifically can adopt changes to both tactics and procedures that will make a big change, and they include things like staying on air all the way through overhaul, cleaning contaminated gear as soon as it's after every fire that it gets contaminated in. Simple processes like that, making sure you have wipes available on the apparatus to be able to clean the skin if it does become contaminated right away. Lots of practical solutions to this problem are in that Firefighter Cancer Support Network white paper. Bruce?
So what Fire-Dex can do to help is at firedex.com we do have a training section. And so from our standpoint, proper care and cleaning of turnout gear to make sure that, number one, it's safe to protect you, but also after you know that it's been exposed to unknown contaminants, it's important that you do take it out of service, that you do have it cleaned, whether it's sending off to a professional or if you have an in-house ability to clean the gear. The biggest message that we're trying to get out is that dirty is no longer cool. In the past, there seemed to be a badge of honor to have dirty gear, but now we know that there's a lot of contaminants that are on your outer shell and on the inner layers, and it's really important to keep your gear clean to help reduce the spread of the contaminant. And then again, figuring out a way to be able to get the new style hoods to make sure that you can protect your skin even farther.
Great. I got a couple more questions here. One comment from Lori Washburn saying she does a cancer presentation to fire departments, and she recommends that to her firefighters that to use water wipes, as they are 99% water and 1% essential oils to wipe down at the scene. And I think, Cindy, did you mention that in your presentation about being careful what products you're choosing as well?
Correct. And a great website that you can utilize to be your own advocate is EWG.org, Environmental Work Group. .org out of Washington, to actually look up what is in your wipes or towels that you're using for decontamination. Also, the cleaning standard is currently under review, and you're going to see some significant changes in that in the near future. Water is still one of the safest ways to get the soot off of your gear, off of your skin. When you start adding other products and other chemicals, whether they're synthetic or not, you have to watch for an enhancement of the issues that can follow. So again, making sure that your solution is not worse than the original problem is very important. And we have those experts available through various sources that we've talked about today that can help you with that information and vetting the various products that are out there.
Great. And there was a couple more here. Someone said, I know you spoke before about cleaning gear. Is there a recommended cleaning interval or just how dirty your gear gets? So how often should you be cleaning your gear?
I'll answer that. And again, it depends upon how and what type of exposures you've been in. So I think if you know that you're in an interior attack and you know that there's synthetics that we're burning, it's important that after that particular incident that you do take the gear out of service and wash it. Otherwise, regular intervals, at very minimum, they say twice a year, but again, it depends upon the regularity of your exposure, how often you have fires. That's so important just to not take the chance. We realize that increased washing may shorten the life of turnout gear, but again, it's really important to wash the contaminants away.
And someone also asked, should the gear be kept in a closed or open locker?
We would recommend an open locker. We would recommend, number one, a closed room that potentially has ventilation. It's important that the storage of the gear not be where it can be exposed to UV light. And UV isn't just from outside light sources. UV can be from internal light sources. So we see where fire departments are being redesigned to have internal gear storage rooms to where they've got lighting that is maybe a red lighting that has a positive pressure so that that ventilation of the room can take place, but definitely don't, especially after cleaning the gear where it might be slightly damp, you definitely don't want to close it up in a closed locker. You definitely want to have it in an open locker.
Great. Someone asked about how to download, get the white paper. It's on Firefighter Cancer Support Network's website, correct, for download?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And another question, have you evaluated the effectiveness of washing these hoods, the new hoods?
I'll answer that. Yes, actually, DuPont has done, Bob, I think they've done a 50 wash test with the configuration of the hood, and they're finding no degradation. It's still producing the same results.
And then one other one here. After washing or storage, how long will typical bunker gear and helmets off-gas carcinogens?
Boy, that's a specific question that I think can vary depending upon, you know, what's exposed to. But Cindy?
Research has documented up to 72 hours or more for the gear. And for the burn buildings, it's been weeks to months for your burn facilities to be off-gassing. So again, the importance of where and how you're keeping the gear. We're going to be doing some fire research at Ocala on Monday at the Fire College, actually looking at some of the off-gassing issues going on, as well as the transportation of the gear and the effects of using plastic bags, plastic containers, and other options for how we can transport our gear in a healthier fashion. Because, again, knowing that folks have a variety of scenarios where they're responding to and from, we want to make sure that you're not taking these carcinogens home to your family and exposing your family.
And what's the, can someone just say the URL for Firefighter Cancer Support Network for the white paper?
I'll work on that.
Yeah, I don't know what their website is, Firefighter Cancer Support Network. So, does anyone have, do you have the link, the URL just for the main site there? Cindy or?
Let me,
Someone just put it here. I'll put it up for everybody.
It's scsn.org. So Frank, Charlie, Sam, Nancy.
Someone sent me the link to the white paper, so it's up on the chat box now for everybody.
Very good. Thank you.
And then let's see, 2 more questions just came in with regard to cleaning. How much of contaminants are removed, or is it even measurable with laundering?
And that's a really good question, and I really don't even think that it's measurable. But the important thing to remember, too, in washing your gear is to make sure that you are separating your liner from your outer shell, that you should wash the liner system first, wash the outer shell second or last. So if you have multiple sets to wash, make sure you're washing the liners first, then the outer shells, and then after the outer shells have been washed, you should run the machine without anything in it, using soap and water to cleanse the machine. The reason that we're doing this is that you need to make sure that you're not potentially blending outer shells with liners and potentially carrying carcinogens to the inner part of the liner where you'd be in contact with your skin. So it's really hard to say measurably how much is washed away. Some of your care and cleaning facilities might be able to answer that better, but if you make sure that you follow the steps I just mentioned, it'll for sure be that the worst of it will be in the last part of the laundry.
There's also an ongoing study right now.
Exactly. I was going to say, the research the NFPA Foundation is currently doing is actually going into that because they're trying to determine easier methods across the board that folks can use for consistency for cleaning of the gear, but also trying to figure out what is actually coming out during the cleaning process and what should that process specifically be. One of the challenges is the fact that we have a variety of gear in the market and a variety of treatments for that gear. And you also have a variety of scenarios for exposures and different levels of carcinogens on the gear. So that's where your challenges are.
I just posted a link, folks, to that study that Cindy's talking about. It's called How Clean is Clean. It's a multi-agency review right now that's looking exactly at that question that was posed here. How do we know how much is being removed through washing? So keep an eye on this. You'll see their progress report, and you'll be able to have a better idea as they finish up their study.
And as you guys work on maybe cleaning your gear more often, make sure you don't go overboard with the type of detergents. Make sure that you still follow NFPA standards and make sure that your cleansers are approved for turnout care, such as you do not want to use any type of cleaner that involves bleach or OxyCleans, as that chemical can damage turnout gear. You might think that, hey, we need to use bleach to properly clean, but that'll eventually damage your gear to the point where you can't use it anymore. So make sure you still follow NFPA guidelines on the proper types of detergents to clean the gear.
I got another question on off-gassing here. When discussing off-gassing at a training facility, are you considering Class A buildings or both Class A and Class B buildings?
We're actually looking at both.
Both?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. There's a couple firefightercancer.org Cindy's put up there. All right, great. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, this is going to be recorded. So I will make this available through the NVFC site once I have a chance to get it uploaded, if anyone wants to watch it again. And thank you, everybody, for attending today, and thank you to our presenters for an informative presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Allison. Appreciate your support.
No
problem.
Thank you all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.